So, Michael, shall we?
Yes, of course. So the focus on today's session, today's webinar is on creating a scenario. So we'll go through some of the thought process on when it might be a good idea to make a scenario, and then we'll try and get ideas from you to brainstorm what a good topic for a scenario would be. So hopefully you guys are on board for participating fairly actively, talking to a number of you. It seems like you're an active group. So even though we're a small group, we hope we can count on you for this. So we're going to start off with a brainstorming activity that's also a bit of a like get to know you or like get to know who we have here activity. So something you answered in the registration form when you signed up for this, but also something that we ask you often is what subjects you teach. And I'm just going to share my screen for a moment to show this brainstorming document. And this will probably feel like a bit of a blast from the past from the pandemic, but it's something that's useful to do when we're uh, trying to interact with each other in an online form. So I have a set of slides here, and you can see I don't have it in presentation mode. I have it in edit mode so I can move things around. But not only that, it's in link sharing. So once I put the link in the chat, you can all go into it, and I'm going to ask everyone, please connect to it. And it's open, so everyone has editor privileges. So what you can do when you go into the slides is you can pick one of these post-it notes and you can move it to anywhere else on the slide. And so I'm showing this with a couple of the post-it notes. But once you connect to these slides, so again, please with the link in the chat, connect to these slides, go ahead and grab a post-it note, slide it somewhere else so you know you don't have the same one as someone else. And in there, write one of the subjects you teach. And even though I'm not currently in the classroom, like now I'm working for the Physical Society as a teacher trainer, I'm going to write some of the subjects I have taught. Uh, and so I'm going to pull in a post-it note and I'm going to stop talking so you guys can do this, but I'm going to add a couple of my own post-it notes. So I'm going to be quiet for the next 30 seconds to a minute while you guys do this. And take another 30 seconds to keep writing if you still have more subjects to add. It's great to see that a lot of you have joined in and you are writing post-it notes. Just before we started, I was saying to Luisa, I've got a couple ideas I hope will work really well, but they're not going to work at all if people don't participate. So it's a huge relief and a huge pleasure to see you guys actually taking the post-it notes. So far, things haven't completely failed. We are going to ask you to be more active through a couple more steps too. And the kind of the level of input is going to slightly increase. Hopefully it won't be anything too much for you guys, but it's great to see we're already getting a number of subjects added there. And I think that's enough time. So we can see that physics is definitely a common theme. That the biology, I'm the only one who put that, and I'm not in a classroom anymore. I actually really love teaching biology. Like I love physics more than anything else, but like there's some great biology stuff to do. So like because that's me, I'm just gonna delete that post-it entirely. Uh, and we can see there's a couple of non-physics things like technology, but most well, and math was me too. I math, the thing I loved about math is because you don't do many experiments. I tried to bring in experiments as much as possible to demonstrate math concepts. But the prep work for it was so much easier because you're just dealing with theoretical things most of the time. But other than that, math was boring to teach. So other than technology and geography, space often falls within a physics topic. So that's good. We're probably then as a group, as we kind of expected from the previous weeks and from knowing you from the sign-up sheets, we're probably going to focus mainly on physics. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the next slide, and we want to know what topics are coming up in the next 2 months for you guys. What you plan on teaching. Like you probably don't have every single lesson planned out, but you probably know, like whether you're teaching mechanics, you've got electricity, space, what topics are coming up. And unless you, like I said in the notes, like unless you're teaching very few classes, there's gonna be like 5 or 10 topics. So take a couple minutes, let's say about 3 minutes, and let's try and see a lot of topics going on there. And unless there are questions, I'll stop talking to not distract you. So just write your topics on there, please.
Just
Keep going.
repeated
Still,
the link if someone got here
perfect.
afterwards.
Great idea. And keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt to add a small bit of more instructions, but please take a new post-it note for each topic so it's easier for us to picture how many topics there are. So if you've already written a lot on one post-it note, just copy and paste it over to a new one. So we have more post-it notes and we have like one per topic. I should have been more clear with that to start. And I really like how everyone's anonymous. Like that's kind of the default, having everyone have editor privileges, but it's great not knowing who they're coming from and just seeing that there are ideas that are coming from you guys. That It's great to see a bunch of topics. Take about 1 more minute and try and add like one more topic each that's coming up. If there's more. If you've written everything you're teaching, you don't feel you need to invent something, but take 1 more minute or so. Okay, th thank you. And I'm quite happy with this number and variety of topics. This gives us a really good starting point to choose from. The next part is probably going to be the hardest part. And this is kind of where guidance becomes a bit more important. So ideally, I would like to tell you Discovery Space is the perfect solution for any lesson planning needs, and you should plan absolutely every lesson you could ever teach with it. But the reality is to create a new learning scenario, it takes a lot of time. Like it takes a surprisingly long amount of time when you're first going through creating one. We have a couple of people here like Isabella and Eiley. I know you were both on the summer school course and you both at least started creating a scenario. Did either of you finish the scenario you started then?
Um, I started a learning scenario, but I didn't finish. I will try to finish this year, and I will make it publicly.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And if we can be of help, like if you get stuck on any part, if you need guidance or anything like that, please don't be shy and ask us if there's something we can help you with.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's very difficult, and it takes a lot of time to make it.
And do you have an estimate how much time you've spent on it so far?
I spent maybe 10 hours, and I didn't finish it.
That that I was gonna guess like roughly the 10-hour range is the minimum amount that most people would take to get a first scenario. Um,
10 hours, yes?
So
Yes.
that like that's great you said it. So it wasn't just me saying that and it sounded completely made up because until you do it, you don't realize how much time it takes. Um, so from that point of view, it's only worth doing if Discovery Space adds something that you wouldn't otherwise be doing with it. And so if we take a step back and we think, okay, well, what is Discovery Space? Well, what are we trying to accomplish with this project? And what are the advantages? And actually, yeah, can you guys either with your microphone or in the chat, what are some of the goals or advantages of Discovery Space? We'll see if you're on the same page we are before I tell you what the project goals are. What do you think we're like Discovery Space tries to do? What need does it try and fit? it seems like people might be a little bit shy or, oh, okay, there we go. Yes, perfect. Thank you, Eileen. Individual learning paths for students. So students who need more help get more help. And then another thing that's possible that isn't programmed into all of the learning scenarios, students who are working faster can have other material given to them. They can be set extra challenges as well. So that's this is one of the backbones of Discovery Space, individual learning paths. Students can get what they need. And there's a graph, I guess I should have had it, well, the graphic. I guess I should have had it handy to show you guys, but it's like, it's on our website. We've shown it on a number of slides, but it shows how one teacher in a classroom can teach with one style. And if you have Discovery Space, you can have a lot of different styles going to different students according to their needs. Of course, Discovery Space isn't the only way you can differentiate learning, but that's one of the main goals of the project, to give differentiated learning so students get what they need when they need it. And then if you think of the mechanics of how that works through an online platform, it's also lends itself, if students, when they're doing something different, if you might want them to get specific instructions and to be able to check that they follow those instructions. Because as a teacher, you can't always check up on all the students at once. But if you put it into a scenario, you can design this scenario such that it checks that students have done one step before they go on to the next. If not, they get sent somewhere for extra help. And so that's another part of it. And then a final thing, which doesn't always come up, it's if there's something that you really think is worth sharing. So either if it's a resource that you think other teachers should know about, they should try in their classrooms, like for the mission to Mars, some of the resources looking at, I mean, both text and video in that case, of the current mission to Mars, that's new science. And there's no old resources based on what's currently happening in Mars. Like, okay, some of the stuff isn't this year, but it's within the past couple of years, and there's no older resources on that. So it's worth having something to share on kind of like breaking or cutting edge physics. Breaking or cutting edge science. So then we get to this next slide. Oh, this next slide, which I see a number of you are on this slide already. It's great to see you there. And it's got those three categories. Oh, I keep switching between slides. Yeah, okay. So it's sorting. And so the need for step-by-step instruction, that there are simulations online that are better than real-life labs, if it's a novel idea. And then the final one is not worth creating a scenario for. And don't worry if any of these topics we end up throwing into that bin. It's not a solution for everything we just said, and as Isabella backed me up on this, it can take a long time to create a scenario. So if it's something that you're already teaching, you're very happy with what you're teaching already, don't reinvent the wheel. We don't need a scenario for every topic, but for some topics, it would be a very useful thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go take all of these Post-it notes. I'm hopefully only going to take Post-it notes, but I'm going to take all these Post-it notes. I'm going to make a copy of them. Hopefully I don't have anything other than Post-it notes. Yeah, okay. This is getting a little bit messy. There's some blank ones still there. Now they're just kind of randomly sorted. And I want us to try and sort out what categories some of these could fit into. Now, these are topics rather than individual lesson plans. So individual lessons or individual activities could make something go into one category or another. So what I'm going to suggest, for example, Newton's laws. There's a heck of a lot of things on Newton's laws, right? So I'm going to make a copy of that one. Oh, I made a copy of everything. Hold the phone on that. Okay. So I'm going to try and no. How can I select this one specifically? Make a copy. Yeah, just of that one. And then I'm going to say something like, okay, for Newton's laws, I know that there's a very good PhET simulation on action, reaction. I might even look up the link for that one and add it, and I'll say that's a simulation where, yeah, I could teach that in the lab, but I don't have a good slide table or like wheelie chairs to have students push each other back. and see reaction, action, reaction. So I know there are good demos for that, but I just don't have the stuff handy. So there's a better simulation for that. And so I'm going to put it in this category, and I'm going to go ahead. And it's great to see people are starting to fill this out. If you've understood the instruction and you can start filling it out, start filling it and sorting post-it notes. If you're still a little lost, I'm going to go ahead and find that action reaction one. So I add that to my post-it note, and it's kind of ready to go as an activity that we might want to include in a lesson plan. Need to sign in? What? Oddly enough, I'm not finding the exact simulation I was looking for. I thought it'd be like an easy, I'd just pull it up. So I'm going to go back to this, and we can get back to that later. Don't worry if you're posting a note, you don't have a specific resource. But if you can think of an activity or activities, and if we can sort some of these into different categories. So let's try and get these more or less sorted into the table. I realize I should have had like a bigger bin for ones that aren't yet sorted so we don't confuse the two. Um,
Maybe you can change the background color of the post-it.
oh yeah, perfect, yes. So once it's sorted, change the background color of the post-it. And for those of you who aren't used to creating post-its in Google Slides, because it's a bit of a specific use, the background color thing is there. And I'm gonna say let's make the ones we've changed bright blue. So then they stand out and we know that they've been changed. So again, once you've changed that, and I'll go through moving some and changing ones. I'll add this quantum physics one because it's the International Year of Quantum, and we do have some scenarios with it. And one of the reasons for that is because some of them, some parts of quantum physics, not all, but some can be taught better with a simulation. So I'm going to add this one there as well. So it goes in that category. So if you're sorting, keep going. I'm gonna start sorting a couple of more so it gets things sorted quicker, but your input is very welcome. So if you're sorting as well, please keep on doing that. This post-it's got a couple of different ideas, so I'm going to separate them into a couple of different post-it notes. So mission to Mars. Oh, just gonna grab a couple of spare post-it notes from the other slide because I don't know where the spare ones went. Okay, spare post-it notes. They're down here if anyone needs them. Okay. Okay, so I'm pulling Mission to Mars out of here. And I'm going to put that in the novel idea because it's new science that's coming out right now. And that's why Mission to Mars fit there. Kind of blocked this one, so I'm going to make this one smaller. And I guess that's another thing. If the table gets full and we can't read anything anymore, feel free to reduce the size of some of the post-its. And it looks like these two are already sorted. I mean, they're certainly annotated, so I'm going to change their color too. If they're not in the right spot, or if you need to move them, feel free to keep doing that, but it's just so we can have a picture of those that have been sorted, haven't yet been sorted. Pending, I don't know if that's supposed to be a topic on its own. I don't understand that one, so let's leave that for now.
Maybe it means pendulum.
Ah, pendulum, okay.
Probably, but you have to ask the person that write down. But I think
Yes.
it's
Probably.
but pendulum. You don't need any scenario.
Perfect. And I'm glad you said that because we have a pendulum scenario and it's a favorite one of our partners, but we could also say it's one that a physical lab probably works well too. So we can put it in this category as well.
Actually, I do it with an experiment in the lab, but also I already have another one with the microbit that we have in the past year.
So what do you have the microbit swinging and it's the accelerometer that's
Oh, it's
measuring
different.
it?
No.
You have to put an object to oscillating, and the microbit is going with the sensor, with the position sensor. Is going to make the sound, so the student can turn around, close their eyes, and they try to figure out how to find the period of the pendulum just only with the sound.
Sonification of data.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It was a training made by NUCLIO, and I created that kind of scenario with a colleague of mine.
That sounds really cool. So they're just listening to it like for the Doppler effect.
Yeah. And the errors are similar with the ones that you have it with just only by using your eyes or by a chronometer or a watch, a stopwatch. Is quite similar. So they can use especially for the kids that that has some limitation with the eyes limitation, or they are blind or some kind of it. You can use this kind of apparatus and it works very well.
That sounds really cool. I'll need to try that. I love that idea. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
And like the idea of sonification reminds me of one of my favorite sonifications with the microbit, and that was using the what's it called? The ultrasound sensor, like that senses distance.
Yeah. It's that one.
And having an oversized graph. Depending on the sensitivity, but I've found the ultrasound, it's not good for things that are like within a centimeter or so difference. It's more for like a couple of centimeters at a time distinguishing. And I have students with a graph, so an oversized graph, and they trace the graph out, but they have a card above the pencil they're tracing over it with. So the distance changes as they're going over the graph. And
Yeah.
then the distance is being converted into a pitch. So they get different sounds depending on whether the graph is high and low.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Then we had some fun trying to sing different shapes of graphs. So the students, like if the graph is going up and down, they'd go like, oh,
Oh.
and to like to describe, so that they'd be vocalizing data, trying to they'd be the sonifiers.
You can do the same thing with the pendulum.
Okay, that
You can
sounds really good.
and you can see the graph on the when you are when you put the data, you can ask to acquire the data into the computer, so you can see the graph as well, and you can ask the students to do this, to do the same, the sonification. But they can use the Arduino and the microbit, and they can program to pitch the notes, and it's quite cool. So it's different in the different when he's very close to the sensor, is going to something like a really high pitch note when they are apart. So it's moving apart of the sensor, is going to. So they found out the period of the oscillation of the pendulum just only with the ears, with audition. It's quite cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Hmm. We should have been doing a webinar on that. Why are we doing a Discovery? No, Discovery Space is good too.
It's different.
Yeah.
Different.
It's different because you were saying there's no need for another for pendulum, but for instance, the pendulum that was created is not specifically about the pendulum, although you learn about the pendulum. The effort that was made was essentially to have students solve problems. Of course, there are iterations in the scenario so that it can be better, of course. But the idea was, even if you don't know what a pendulum is, maybe you can sort out some time of justification of what is going to happen if something happens. So the DSpace curriculum pendulum is not only about the pendulum, it tries to be more about reasoning and problem solving. The actual things that we were talking now is more for getting the data for the pendulum and understanding how the period goes and so on. So there's a lot of things we can do. Different goals, I guess.
Yeah, but anyway, but it's a good idea as well. So we can connect the theoretical thing, related with this kind of scenario, and after that they can do the
Definitely.
that lab. So it's quite nice. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, things add up.
yeah.
The imagination, the creativity of putting the sonification is great.
Now that we see a lot of these sorted, and there's a number of ones that aren't sorted yet too, and I'll change the color of any ones that I see that people have written something, because I'll assume those got to, well, no, I guess Ohm's law isn't a novel idea, but there was a simulation that was added there. I wonder where that fits best.
There are already two about Ohm's law. One uses FET. I think both use FET.
Both use FET, but they use different FET simulations. I'm trying to remember because there's a handful of different ones on circuits. I think they use different. Well, one actually uses two different FET simulations in the same scenario too. But anyways, from this list of ideas and from ones that fit within probably worth creating a scenario about rather than not worth creating a scenario about, are there any that stand out as one that seem like we want to consider together a scenario on this? Luisa, are there any you particularly like the look of?
Because we already have the Newton's laws, there's already scenarios, motion equations, I'm not sure. Quantum physics already, mission to Mars there. Ohm's law, there's already.
And
Feel free.
and as we're thinking about this, also just to take a step back and point out, or like to remind or clarify to everyone, this is a thought process that you can go through when you're thinking you might want to create a scenario, because it might like it might seem like a good idea to just think, oh, okay, I want to teach about this topic, but if it's not a topic that either it's better to be able to differentiate, or you have better simulations than what you can do live, or you're incorporating something new, then it might not be worth the time. So like that's why we've taken the time to go through this brainstorming process, because when it comes up with other things you might want to make a scenario about, before committing to, like we said, probably a 10 or more hour set of work in front of you, it's only for topics that might be worthwhile doing that, where you'll get where you'll really get the advantage of the Discovery Space platform.
Let me just add that besides the usual online simulations that we are used to, which are simulations, there's also the Labsland real labs that are controlled remotely. So the possibility of having both a simulation and a remote lab, which is a physical lab, can also be one advantage when you're thinking about one subject.
And that's something maybe worth highlighting too about Labsland, is that usually, I mean, like for general public, when it's not part of a Discovery Space scenario, then it's proprietary platform, so you need to sign up to use. But being a Discovery Space partner, those are all freely usable within Discovery Space and on the platform. So it's a great occasion to get to use that resource as well. So that's worth keeping in mind. And another thing worth keeping in mind is that a scenario doesn't have to use a simulated lab. If there's interesting other data, information, or things that students could be doing, and I'm just going to switch to the platform to give a couple examples of this. So one is the mission to Mars, and a number of you are familiar with that as well. Where is the, well, I won't take the time to go into it, but Mission to Mars uses mainly text and video that's been published recently by NASA. I think there's one or two European Space Agency ones. Over the weekend, we had the Discovery Space Fall workshop in Mulhouse, and we had some teachers who were looking at it and they were saying, oh, it'd be good to have some stuff that's more interactive. And so they were looking at using Google Mars, which is like Google Earth, but also maps of Mars. So that's yet another resource that's not a simulation that could be useful. Zookeepers of the Galaxy. This is one of the ones I created, and it doesn't use a simulation. At the time when I was creating it, we wanted to be able to give an activity that could teach students about machine learning while also teaching about a space topic. So it uses Google Teachable Machine rather than a simulation. Offhand, I can't think of another. I guess there's cell identification. Similar, uses Google Teachable Machine. Just to show that there are a handful of scenarios, and more ones can be created that don't use simulations. Just like some of the resources people gave here, these seem to be videos, which is really good because that's a good thing to use. Oh, I guess I guess the refraction scenario had a number of videos, but it also had a simulation. Okay, so
Sorry, Michael, for interrupt. is it possible to have these scenarios with metadata, something like, okay, I want to teach something in Spanish or I don't know, metadata with the language, with the topic, with this, the subject. Is it possible to do it in the platform? Because it's very hard to me to go through all these kind of scenarios and try to figure out which one is good for me. I know that I can go to the dashboard and I can search filter here, but
So
I think it's could be more easy for me if I have something on the left or right with the subject that I want to teach or kind of similar. I don't know.
Yeah, the thing is that this phase of the project, it's still developing the platform.
Okay.
Although DSpace will end in some months, there are other projects that will take over the continuation of the platform, and I'm sure that it will have other features besides the ones that we have here. The project aimed to have around 100 scenarios created by the partnership and the teachers working with the partnership, with the partners. So it was more like a closed system. That's why it wasn't that important to have those features. But I would guess that it will evolve towards something that you can filter what you want.
Well, that's something probably worth us feeding back to the development team as well, that now that there are a number of scenarios, that would be useful for teachers trying to use it. It kind of reminds me of a year ago or over a year ago, and we only had like a single-digit number of scenarios on the platform. And at that time, that was before there were different sharing options. Everything was just public. There wasn't private, organization only, and public. And I was making the point and trying to argue reasonably hard that very soon we needed to have some kind of privacy settings, because once we had more people creating scenarios, it would be really confusing if everyone sees everyone else's work. But that was a feature that was only developed once there were enough scenarios that a need for it arose. And so for being able to filter by topic, for example, or other metadata that might be useful to have, that hadn't come up before. But now that we have more scenarios, and now that you mention it, it's obvious that yes, that would be a useful thing. So that should be something that should be added. So we'll feed that back, and hopefully it'll be added, but like don't expect it tomorrow or anything. But that's a very useful thing to ask for, and hopefully it's something, yeah. And also just to point out to people who aren't used to the filters yet, so when you're in the platform, here I'm in the authoring tool. It's the same if you're in the should be the same if you're in the dashboard. It should be the same. No, it's not the same in the student view. At any rate, in the authoring tool, when you're getting familiar with ones, you can search by language. Unfortunately, the language is a field that was hand typed by people, so we have a German spelling of English that has either no or very little scenarios, but if you look for the correct spelling of English. Similar, we have at least 3 spellings of Portuguese. I think it's more than 3, as well as for a number of other languages. But like in this case, if you want English only scenarios, this works fairly well for getting that. There's a couple other things you could look for, like with yeah, like this is keywords, even though it doesn't specifically say keywords. So like if you're looking for keywords. Yeah, that was a really good point. Okay, and like I often do, even when I'm teaching with students in class, I end up spending longer than I intend on part of things, and then kind of in a rush for time. We've only got a couple of minutes left. Luisa, can you advise me from here? We probably don't want to go to sorting out activities for each phase of the scenario.
No. First
What
of all, just put those letters in black because we cannot read them.
what's in black? Oh, yeah.
Engagements and so on, analysis.
In the slide.
Yeah, no, that's the board. Where is the
But those were the phases of the inquiry based.
yeah. We should all have all these words memorized by now. No,
Well, I think that we also had an audience that has already worked with Discovery Space. So the idea that we had, let's create one from the beginning, it tended to be more useful to discuss the ideas that lead you to create a scenario than to actually know how to add an activity in the platform. I'm not sure from those that are here if everyone has enrolled has registered. Is there anyone over here that hasn't registered in the platform? Despan Gabriela or Filaci or Stanko Julian? Are you all in the platform already? No? So Michael, do you have
yeah, I'm just gonna get out of my shared screen because all my links are in a mess of other things that I don't think there's anything private. It just seems ugly to show like the behind the scenes draft. But they're in the chat. I've pasted. So if you are new, that should be like a priority. Maybe that's the last note we'll end on, is a reminder how to get your own teacher account.
That's the link to the lab. Then you have to register. So you can also give the link directly to the registration for those that aren't registered as teachers, because sometimes people register just as students, and it's not the same thing. To be able to work with the platform, creating student groups and so on, you need to be registered as a teacher. And to do that, you need the code that Michael has already put over here. It's very, very easy. Fortunately, there's no problem. So you create an account and you put the access code that is over here in the chat, so that you are a teacher, you have a teacher account. But I was going to say something else before this. Oh, Eiley had a question about the deadline for the competition. The implementations on the 28th, do they also count? I think so. It says until the 28th. So until the 28th, they count because they are going to be analyzed on the 29th. Let me just remind you that we might have several teachers having more than 50 implementations. There is only place for 2 teachers, not place, there is lots of place, money for 2 teachers. So
to have a funded invitation where they pay for you to get there.
Exactly. So they will draw. We will have like an automatic drawing thing that will take the name of 2 teachers. The other thing I was going to say was also very, very important, but this, oh, yes. If you need those that still haven't really worked with the platform and are going to do that, hopefully they will. Don't forget that we are here to help. We can always have a Zoom. We can have an exchange of emails. Try out what you want and let us know if we can help you. Michael is always saying that, but I just wanted to say it again because, you know, we really need at this phase lots of implementations and teachers trying out to create new things so that they can see the problems that there are, what are their barriers, you know, and that can give us a very good feedback on how to have this platform more user-friendly and teachers using it with more confidence. I'm going to share, I have shared this with, well, Michael is already sharing here the Google group, if anyone still isn't there. But
most people still aren't there, so it took me forever to
I
figure out
didn't
how to
receive.
invite. Okay, you weren't signed up for the webinars, but I'll send it to you because you weren't. I mean, you're running the webinars with me, so it makes sense you weren't signed up. But it took me an obscene amount of time to figure out how to fiddle with the settings so you can invite people by a link. It's like it's a feature they tried to phase out, but it's hidden, and it seems silly that but otherwise I would have needed to add people from their email address, but I hadn't asked them explicitly, can I add you to a group? And so needed to avoid doing that. And but now the invitation is out there. There's only 3 of us in there. It'd be great if it's less lonely. 'Cause that's why, like if it's just contacting me or Luisa, you could just email us directly. But there's some questions or ideas or advice that might be useful to share with others as well, or ask others. And if it's the kind of thing, if you ask us, if others might be wondering the same thing, then they can see the answer there. So if we get a critical mass there, then we can hopefully have that as a useful place to keep up discussions too.
And I was sharing with Sharzad the playlists of the webinars. So there was already a set of webinars during springtime, and now this is the full webinar series, and Michael has been putting there the webinar. So if you missed any of them, especially those that haven't been working with the platform yet and might want to see the ones that really show you how to do the basic things, there's a recording of the session. And of course, if you don't understand or if you want a quick go through, we can always do that with you. So I think that the purpose today was in fact to create one, but I think we turned it out more a discussion of why create, what do you need to think about when creating. And for this audience, I think it was more appropriate for a 1-hour webinar than actually showing you things that maybe most of you have already done by yourself. But still, we can do it whenever you want.
And just to quickly show, because the idea of showing the playlists of the recordings. So if you're relatively new and you want to run down to the platform and stuff, the first webinar of either series, either this fall one or the Spring into Discovery Space, those are useful for that. And then if you're interested in advice and kind of like a detailed overview of any of the scenarios, the ones past that, like these are each focused on a scenario number 3, 4, and 6. Similar for the September ones of the fall series, and from last week onwards, so number 4, from 2 weeks ago onwards, from number 4 onwards, it's more of a deep dive. Oh, that's me talking twice. And if you're interested in more detail on artificial intelligence and how to teach that in the classroom, then AIMLO is a whole 6-part course that we taught a year ago, and that was before the platform was in good enough shape for it to be worth having a webinar series specifically about scenarios that were on there. So those are all things that are potentially worth checking out. I think because now we're already over time, and we've
Yes.
now shared a bunch of links, so you could binge watch us for the rest of the evening, if that suits your fancy. I think that's a good point to end things on. Anything else to add, Luisa?
No, just that it was really nice to have you here with us, and I hope it was you enjoyed it and you got something from it, and you're eager to use DSpace and try it out and tell us how we can get it to work better. And we're here next week at the same time.
And that one is going beyond the scenario. So the main idea is for that is what you can do beyond simply creating or using a scenario, like how to share with other people in your school or local area. Oh, the link again for the YouTube channel? Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
it's because, yeah. Thank you, Jose. Pilati is always leaving and coming back, has difficulties. She. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And it was really good to have a nice active group who is participating along with us, sharing ideas. It was great to hear from you guys. So thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.